Okay. All right, guys, welcome to another episode, I guess you could call it, of Interview. So this week, we're welcoming David Stefanich of Great Lakes Elementary School in West Ottawa Public Schools. So Dave, welcome to this weird undergrad class.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So the first thing I ask everybody is, tell us a little bit how you chose the field of education and how you went about becoming a teacher and then into deciding to become a principal.
Yeah. I was in college and I was at Grand Valley and kind of just fumbling around, not really sure what I wanted to do. And my second semester at Grand Valley, I took an intro to education class and really liked it. My dad was an educator for about 30 plus years, so it's definitely like part of like the family. Transferred from Grand Valley to Hope College and continued on the education department. Really had a, I think, desire to be a middle school teacher. And I kind of feel like people can either do that or they can't. It's not for everyone. And so I ended up getting the elementary cert with every intention of teaching middle school English, and did my student teaching in middle school. I actually got my first job at West Ottawa teaching middle school English. And then after that year, I got bumped out of that position. And the only other jobs available were at the elementary. A lot of my undergrad was focused on middle school, so I didn't do student teaching and I didn't do a lot of placements at the elementary. So it was a pretty big transition. I went from teaching sixth grade, just ELA, to fourth grade, where I was doing everything, all subject areas. Some point at the elementary level, the principal at the time kind of encouraged me to work on my ed leadership degree. So I got my master's of ed leadership from Western. And after 6 years teaching, Western, after 6 years teaching, the principal job in the building opened up, and the superintendent at the time really encouraged me to apply for it. I just finished my degree. I wasn't necessarily mentally prepared to make that leap, but it seemed like something I needed to do because it was, the school that I'd kind of fallen in love with, and I felt like I could serve in that way. So I'm on a meeting here. Okay. So I taught for 6 years, and then I've been the principal at Great Lakes Elementary for 11.
11.
You go downstairs, but I'm on a meeting. Something like that. So yeah, principal as my son Kyrie. It's dinner time, I guess. So I've been a principal there for 11 years now.
Awesome. That's okay. Alice has come in many times during these interviews and popped her head in. So it's what happens when we're teaching and principling and things from home.
Yes.
What kind of, for a few of the students in my class expressed interest in, what would you have, like, how many years do you recommend teaching to know if you want to be an administrator or not? Or do you think that there is a certain amount, or do you think it's just?
I don't think there's necessarily a certain amount. I think, for most districts, it probably is beneficial in the long run to get that master's degree. When you get that first teaching job, you're really going to want to look at like the teaching salary and do they pay for classes? And, in West Ottawa, there's a pretty big difference between teachers that have a master's and teachers that don't in terms of salary. So I was really encouraged early on to get that master's right away. And I waited a couple years, and I kind of wish I would have gotten it earlier just from a financial standpoint. But then I really just started thinking about thinking out 5 or 10 years. What do I want to do? Do I want to be a reading specialist? Do I want to just really focus in on a certain content area and go deeper in that? And then I had a couple people, like the principal at the time, encouraged me with a leadership degree. It is something that you can kind of move up the ladder in, if you will. And having a dad in education and a dad that had done some work in administration seemed like a good fit. So I would work on that degree as soon as you feel like you can handle teaching, full time, and then also like the course load at the graduate level. And then in terms of how long to stay in the classroom, I think that's going to be up to the individual. I only taught for 6 years. Financially, it was a really nice jump. I think professionally, my first couple of years, I was 27 when I was a principal, and I was the youngest person in the building, and that came with some challenges. And then just the more that you teach and the more that you can be in education, the more tricks and tips you're going to pick up from other educators. And so when you just think about being the instructional leader of the building, I think the more and the more varied experience you can have teaching, the better off you're going to be able to serve your teachers. Kind
Yeah.
of a nanny.
Yeah. So inquiring minds want to know and I laugh whenever they give this question because they ask what a typical day looks like. And I feel like no 2 days look the same for a principal. But so I guess, what are your goals for most days? What would you like to be able to do during your day for most days?
Yeah, there's no typical day. And I think you have to be really flexible in knowing that your job really is to serve and to respond to needs in the building. Sometimes those needs are teachers, sometimes they're students, sometimes it's from central office, sometimes it's from parents. But I think what all good principals want to do is they want to be in the classrooms, either providing feedback to teachers or just getting a pulse of, how kids are learning. And something I've learned is that if you schedule it, you can make it happen. Fires pop up all the time. And with COVID, I think a lot of principals right now are dealing with contact tracing and working with the health departments and probably their central office team on that. But you got to make a effort to get into classrooms. We have kind of like a formal evaluation cycle that we go through. So that's part of something I do almost weekly, but then I also try to get into classrooms and just leave positive feedback for teachers as often as possible. That's not necessarily tied to this, teacher evaluation system, which at times can be stressful for people. So being around the kids, try to be close to the action. You're doing the drop off and pick up stuff beginning into the day, and parents are yelling at you and not following directions, and try to find someone to cover the lunch duty for you so you don't have to go in there. Those are the
Yeah.
goals. Yeah,
Yeah.
just you want to be around staff.
Right. Right. That seems to be every principal I've ever talked to wants to be in and around the staff and the kids, but maybe find someone else to do the before and after school duty. The buses are crazy. That's what I'm told.
Buses are crazy. Our parent line today was really slow, and a couple teachers that were out a little late, and it wasn't the best today.
Yeah. Yeah. My kids ride the bus now because I hate the pickup line. Ugh, nobody follows rules. Do you ever miss being in the classroom as a teacher?
And I wish I could say I do, but I don't. Never. Like not a little bit, not at all. I so value everything that happens in the classroom, but I could never make a move and go back into like teaching on the daily. One, I think being in the principal role, you see things from a little bit of a higher vantage point, and I think that allows me to feel connected to more kids than just in a classroom of 28 or so. And then I like the responsibility that comes with leading. I like in the classroom you're really serving the students. In the principal role you're serving both students and adults. So I like that adult to adult connection and mentorship, and even some of the tough conversations. And then I also I can go to the bathroom whenever I want. I can, I have so much more freedom that I think teachers don't realize that you kind of lose when you get into the classroom and you're tied to the bell schedule. That when I became a principal, I was like, whoa, I can do anything I want within reason during the school day in this building at any time. So I get to cover enough with a sub shortage that I get my fix, and I can pop into classes and do read alouds, and I can jump in and do writing lessons, but I wouldn't want to do it on a daily basis anymore.
I think that shows that you're probably in the right place then, right? Like,
Yeah.
you feel like you're in the spot you're meant to be.
I feel good with where I'm at for sure.
Nice. So what kinds of new challenges have you seen besides contact tracing and stuff? What kinds of new challenges have you and your staff faced this year because of COVID?
Oh, I think probably the biggest thing is everything that great teachers do and anything that a good instructional leader would do in terms of helping teachers get better at the craft really is like direct competition with COVID safety practices. So thinking about small group instruction or one-on-one conferring, or like we have a pretty robust MTSS or RTI block with reading interventionists, and some of the stuff that they've done in the past we're having to do differently because they see so many kids in a day. And we have had some positive cases in the school, and we've had some staff members have to go into quarantine. So really just trying to navigate keeping the students but also the staff safe. And then what we normally would be doing as best practice has been really challenging. um, the way that West Ottawa is part of Ottawa County Health Department. So the way that we do our contact tracing is if you've been within 6 feet of someone that's tested positive for 15 cumulative minutes over a school day. And so really trying to like help teachers understand it's okay to be doing things a little bit differently, even setting up classrooms, and you're spacing kids out, and maybe we're seeing more old school rows and less movement breaks. But I think in the long run, the longer we can be in school doing this in person, the better off kids are going to be, even if the instruction is not what it was last year. And
Yeah.
most teachers are perfectionists by like nature, and so that's really hard for them to let go of things that they've done in the past that they know work, when you're kind of fighting, I guess, this like invisible enemy, if you will. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
been tough.
totally. Yeah, we've
And
seen that at
I guess
the
the other thing that's been challenging this year, so my building has about 500 kids. We started with just 270 kids face to face.
Mhm.
So we had a lot of kids that were virtual. I had to, about a week before school started, I moved 4 teachers from classrooms to virtual teachers. And so helping those families get connected to internets, get Chromebooks, learn the online curriculum, that's been challenging, and that's all been new. And then we've allowed kids to come back um, basically 2 times, like 3 weeks into the year. We allowed people to shift back, and we had about 27 kids that came back, so that wasn't too bad. And then 3 weeks after that, we had 57 kids come back. So then getting them on new class lists and some of the stuff that we normally are really tight on in terms of building pretty equitable and fair class lists and good boy-girl ratio, has gone out the window a little bit. So navigating the kids kind of coming and going. And on the flip side of that, we've had kids go virtual that started the year face-to-face. So just kind of navigating where everyone's at and trying to keep track of people and supporting everyone.
yeah, scheduling has definitely been a challenge in my
Yeah, for
building.
sure.
Um, what this was one that came up a couple times. How do you normally, like right now, obviously with COVID it's different, but how do you normally involve community with the school? Or
Yeah, so my building is about 78% free and reduced. So, when I have like student teachers in the building and they always have to interview the principal, they ask about parent involvement, and kind of my stock answer is, the parent involvement at Great Lakes is not maybe like what would be the typical or the stereotype. It's not going to be a bunch of room moms. I don't have a robust PTO. I have families that are working, 2 jobs, or they're working second or third shift. And kind of where their family support comes in is, one, there's a really high level of trust, that they trust that the classroom teachers are doing their job, that they value education, but they trust that the teacher is the one who's supposed to be educating. And so maybe they're not helping with homework as much or doing some of those other things, but it really comes down to like their value of education, that they believe the teacher is the one doing that. Getting community like input, we've done some stuff through our PTO. We have some parent nights because we're a Title I school. I think everyone will kind of tell you the generic answer of, if you have food, people will come in. I think to an extent that's true. We've also really tried to market some of those nights where we want families coming in by giving away like free books, and we try to tie a lot to literacy, and we've really pumped it up at the school so the kids kind of go home and bug their parents to come. And then at those nights, if we're having a family reading night, we also kind of trick parents where like one of the stations we take the kids and they go do a craft, and then I hold a parent meeting and talk about how you set up like a routine to read at home, or how you work through multiplication homework when we weren't taught the same way we're teaching our third and fourth graders. So I think you got to be creative, and then I think you gotta build rapport with parents. So I'm out, especially this year because we're doing our drop off at the beginning of the day different. I'm out there every day. It's the same 200 cars that come through, and you try to have quick 5 to 30 second conversations with people, and that's how you build those relationships. And then when you need something or when you want to get some input, you can kind of catch someone and say like, hey, I need you to do this. And since you have that rapport, they're more likely to do that. But I mean, it's all about relationships. You got to be invested in. You got to kind of feel. Got to get a sense of what your parent population needs and how they want you to serve, and then you try to fit that versus them fitting like your style. Or we're just going to have a PTO meeting at 7 o'clock on Tuesdays. Once a month. If that doesn't work, you got to figure out ways to make it work. So, and for our population, my building, like that changes from year to year too. We've done during the day meetings for PTOs. We've done right after school. We've done in the evening. So you got to kind of change and adjust with what your team is, I guess.
Yeah. I think you and I have similar buildings and similar parent involvement, because we have a high trust in our district as well, that the teachers they know what they're doing. And we have I think you do too. We have many parents that don't speak English. So we have.
Yeah. We got about 38% of our building. English is their second language. Spanish, Cambodian, and Lao are the three main languages spoken. So then you got to try to bridge that gap as well.
Yeah. Our buildings are very similar. Okay, so everybody wants to know, because you're a principal, when you're hiring, what kinds of things stand out when you're going through resumes and applications?
Resumes and applications, I think, especially if you're looking for people right out of college, one, you're kind of filtering two ways. You're filtering people that have some teaching experience, and then you're filtering through just people that are recent graduates. Right now, I think there definitely is like supply and demand, and it's hard to find good people. Because my building is a Title I building, we have an at-risk population. I definitely am looking at some of the placements that candidates have had in the past, to see if they have had anything that would be somewhat similar, even if it's not their student teaching experience, just because my building functions a lot differently than maybe a handful of the other ones inside of West Ottawa, where the population, both socioeconomically and racially, are much different. And so I try to find people that have some experience in a similar building. I'm definitely always looking for people that speak Spanish, or maybe that have that side ESL endorsement, or have worked in a school that has a high, Hispanic population. There are some ways to make the resume kind of catchy. Like I'm into some of like the more modern stuff where you have like a little blurb on the side, or just something that's kind of eye catching. Definitely, like, you wouldn't believe how many resumes or application letters we get that have spelling errors or are addressed to the wrong person. If we have like a third grade job, I might get 80 applicants over the summer, and 15 of them I can filter out right away just because of like spelling or grammar errors, or they addressed it to someone in Zealand and or West Ottawa. So that kind of stuff happens. Then in the interview process, one of the first things like I look for is just like positivity. The first thing I kind of look for is, how are you going to fit our culture, and how are you going to make our culture better? And teaching is like just a ridiculously hard profession, and teachers are on the front lines, and their job is so hard. And so I need people that are positive by nature, and can bring other people like up when they're feeling down. And so then I start to filter a little bit in the interview, that first interview, just by personality type. and how they would fit the team, the culture, the building. And then in the second and third interview, definitely get into the nuts and bolts of teaching and classroom management.
Okay, cool. I haven't thought about, I mean, I've sat on hiring committees, but I haven't thought about being an applicant for so many years.
Yeah.
So to shift, my students have done their research and they know that you've written a children's book. And many of them would like to know a little bit about it. So for the students who didn't look it up, a little bit about it, and then what inspired you to write a children's book?
I was definitely inspired by some of the work I do in the principal role in terms of both, dealing with kiddos that are in a situation where someone's being bullied or, one kiddo is being disrespectful to another. And then also kind of having that conversation with parents. There's a lot of times parents feel like their child's getting bullied and maybe they're not, but they're like, there was an incident that was disrespectful versus a long history of it. And just having that conversation with both students and parents, I was always trying to pull in some picture books or things that kind of are on that topic. And I wasn't finding the kind of stuff that really spoke to kind of what we talk about in West Ottawa and being a bystander and, looking out for each other and kind of the book's called Stand Up, but literally kind of standing up for someone if you see someone, being uncool to a classmate or a friend. And so I, I was a language arts major. I took a lot of creative writing classes in college. So I started doing some research on children's picture books. And one of my kindergarten teachers, her brother has written a handful of picture books. So I did a Google Hangout meeting with him before Google Hangout was a thing just all through now, and got some input and some ideas from him. And then just kind of started writing and revising. And it was cool because I was able to bring drafts of the story into classrooms and read it to kids and get kind of honest feedback and find spots where I thought I'd done, something kind of cool with, with the words and kids were bored by. And yeah, it was a fun process. And it's still a book because it's still kind of relevant in terms of just being, a good human, I guess, that we use at Great Lakes quite often. I just saw an ed assistant reading it to a first grader the other day. It's kind of when I was walking by. So still getting some miles.
We've given it as a gift to all of our kids' elementary school teachers, except now they're starting to repeat elementary school teachers. So we've had to get a little bit more creative. So, but it's still in the rotation here because even though Eddie and Charlie are kind of old for it, now it's in Alice's room. So
for sure.
it goes through. And, she thinks it's super great that you signed it and put her name in it. I said, yeah, you were real small when you put your name in there.
I know. It's been a while. It's been out, so.
I know. Okay, so what would you say is one of the greatest joys of your job?
I think it's all about relationships. So whether it's the relationships you build with teachers, and I had someone that retired last year and kind of still reaches out to me or shoots me a random email or text. I get a lot of joy in that, having those connections and feeling for someone, she had taught longer than I'd been alive. So I'm turning 38 and I think she had taught for 39 years or something. And so just to have that connection with her, and she had worked in multiple states for multiple, principals. So that relationship piece, I have an ongoing email conversation with a sixth grader that was a fifth grader last year that just had a lot of stuff going on in the household, and during quarantine, it was tough on family, and I would buy books on Amazon and send them right to her house. And so just some of those little things, that the relationship piece that maybe goes unseen on the day-to-day aspects of the job. I also like just putting that money in the relational bank, because I do have to have tough conversations with people, whether it's hey, this lesson didn't go like maybe you thought it did, or you know, like someone today, like you were 5 minutes late to pick up and the entire school was waiting for your class and the first two cars in line were for kids from your class. Like, I like having that relational money in the bank because you do have to have so many tough conversations. You're able to then like have those conversations. And I think for the most part, people know like you still care and you're still like in their corner, but you're also got a job to do. Um, and then just anytime you like see or hear kids being successful, you know, and it can be really little things. Like I got this little dude that we're having a really hard time keeping in class, and today he finally earned a positive break, and his bar for earning a positive break is about as low as it can be. And it was just like a huge celebration, and it came across the radio, and like people in the office kind of like celebrated because we've been working so hard. And so just all those little celebrations of, you know, student success, and then also teacher success. You know, I got people working virtually right now, and we have 4 teachers that started, and 3 of them wanted to go virtual and 1 didn't, and I kind of had to, you know, make the decision on that and basically write of assign it, and then just to see what an awesome job she's done with that and some of the tech skills that she's learned has been like a cool thing.
Yeah. Thank you for this
Yeah,
interview.
sweet.
I'll go ahead and thank you here, and then I'm gonna stop recording a second. If I can find my little stop button.